gone through something that was really, really difficult and it left you broken, it left you traumatized, and you were too scared to tell people about it? Well, today's guest, Adriana and Johnny, went through something that was very intimate and very private, but they're going to share what happened today, because this story is going to completely impact you, because it's a story of restoration, a story of healing, and how God was faithful in their life. So sit back and be inspired. Thank you so much, Adriana and Johnny, for being on the show. I'm so excited for you to share your story.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having us.
Of course. You guys actually just celebrated your anniversary.
Yes.
When was that? That was
11/11.
11/11.
Yeah.
What'd you guys do for your anniversary?
Hung out with the kids.
Well, we're in a global pandemic, so so there's not much else.
Not much we could do, but
Yeah.
we did celebrate it and enjoy it with our loved ones. So that's always a good thing.
But there was actually a time where you guys were apart, that you guys separated.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So we met each other when we were kids. I was 15. He was 18. And we got married about 21. I think I was about 21. Our son, our firstborn, was in '03, and we had a quick, civil wedding.
Went down to the city hall.
Yeah, and
just
I was like
got
this
married.
big.
Pregnant with them.
But we always I never wanted my kids to be born and us not be married. We always I was brought up Catholic, and I was very, you don't do that. And so it was like 10 days before our son was born, and we got married. But things were already, it was just off and on. And then daughter came a couple of years after that.
Well, first after that, a year after we had that civil, we actually had a church wedding. And so our son was about a year old when we had the church wedding. So we call it our second wedding.
And it wasn't exactly what you guys had pictured,
No.
but, given the circumstances,
Right.
that's what you guys did.
Yeah.
And then our daughter came, and we were just in a very toxic relationship. We had different ways of thinking. We didn't have, a center. We couldn't figure things out on our own. So after struggling and just being in a toxic relationship, our kids were getting older. I decided to. I felt like there was no hope. I felt like it's there's too many things happening. So filed for divorce, and we were actually divorced for about
Almost 5 years.
5 years. Yeah, and our marriage towards the end was, like I said, extremely toxic, and our divorce became worse. I mean, it was horrible. We were horrible to each other.
Johnny, what was that like for you, being separated from her? Like, for 5 years, what was that like? Did you ever go through the healing process, or was it just like a lot of anger during that time?
Well, I mean, before, like she was saying, I mean, we were kind of going like this. We weren't going in the right way. And so we were kind of, just trying to fulfill ourselves and whatever made me feel good, and she wasn't making me feel good, so then I would hurt her and she would hurt me, not physically, but just emotionally and stuff. And so when we separated, obviously at first it's like, oh, okay, this is going to be good. We'll get a fresh start. It sucked because we had our kids together, and we weren't, we're so used to having them all the time, and she is a great mom. I love my kids. I did everything with my kids. I came from a place where I had an absent father, or a father that left, all the stuff, alcoholic dad, and all these different things, my real father. And so when we separated, it was like, okay, it's time for us to kind of, start over and stuff. But towards the middle of it is when I started going to church, and so I grew up Catholic as well too.
You both grew up Catholic.
Yeah, we were both baptized Catholic and grew up Catholic. Our second wedding was Catholic wedding. So I started going to a Christian church, and I've always believed But I would go to different churches, and sometimes, just like anything, there's good and bad, and just enemy fights and stuff. But so I started going when we were separated and divorced. And I tell her all the time, there's times that I would wake up, I would have dreams of me and her and the kids being together, me and her walking down the hallway to church together, and then I would wake up like crying because like I just want my family back, but we weren't good with each other, when we were separated.
And what was happening to you during that time? He was having dreams that he was back with you and the kids. What was happening to you during those 5 years?
I was heartbroken, and then he, like I said, we hurt each other so badly. And I showed up to my divorce hearing, and he showed up with a girlfriend, with his mom, with his 3 sisters, and I'm there alone, and I just felt, I was just heartbroken because nobody thinks that they do anything wrong. It's always the other person, and that was my mentality, and I mean, I wasn't that bad, but, that was the mentality. It was like, oh, how could he do this to me? But there was, I had obviously my share in it as well, but at that moment, I just felt heartbroken, and part of me always, I always loved him, and it's funny because obviously he moved on, not even divorced, and he had a girlfriend, and then so I felt like there was no hope again, and I focused all my energy and everything that I had on my children, and then I met somebody. So then we were both in relationships.
You were both doing your own thing.
We were both doing our own things.
We were both in a point where the girl I was with wanted to get married and have kids, and I was like, I don't want any more kids. I don't want to get married.
I was not expecting this.
Yeah.
And she actually was with a guy that wanted to get married, wanted to have kids, and she was like, no, I'm not getting married again.
I don't believe in marriage anymore.
If you guys could go back and redo your first marriage over again, what would be some things that you would want to change?
The one thing I would change is putting God first. Because that's God, and we can get into it in a little bit, but that's what saved our marriage, and it was because of God. And if we would have had God first, like we're trying to teach our kids now, we wouldn't have these issues that we had at that time, because we were living for ourselves and not for God, and not putting God first. Like I had, say my parents or family or my kids up here, and then my wife here, and myself here, and God down here. So we weren't going like this. You have God in the triangle and us going towards God. That's why we were going different ways. So for myself, I mean, that's what I would change, and we've talked about it before. I mean, for me, that's the biggest thing. So.
Would you agree with that, Adriana?
I do. I think that we were trying so hard to just satisfy ourselves, like, well, I want this, or it should be like this, or it should look like this.
Selfish, right?
Yeah.
We were trying to fix everything ourselves.
Yeah. And then he was doing the same thing, and then it was like we didn't have a common goal. We didn't have something that we could work towards together. It was always like, well, I want things to be this way, and this is how you're going to get there. And he had his own ideas, so it was just it wasn't healthy.
Do you also think that you relied too much on your husband for your own happiness?
I don't know. Maybe.
I think so.
I always personally tell myself that your significant other is never going to completely fulfill you, because they're human themselves, and they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to upset you, and they're going to sin themselves because they're just broken just like you. And you got to be broken together.
No, it's true. And I do remember him telling me once, in the middle, well, it wasn't telling, it was more like shouting, but that I expected too much from him, because I was vocal about, well, I want things to be this way, or things should look this way. And so when I would tell him that, he was like, you expect too much from him. I'm like, what do you mean too much? Like, it's not too much, but yeah, I think that in a sense, I did expect that, and my relationship after him is perfect proof, because everything that I wanted him to be, this guy was. I mean, he was excellent to my children. He was a good man, and what I wanted this guy to be, and I still wasn't happy because it wasn't him. So yeah, it was a
Careful what you wish for. Some.
Yeah. Johnny, what would you say, what did it take in order for you to get to where you guys are today?
Well, like I said, I started going to church at that time. I already believed and stuff, but rededicated my life, gave my life to God. And I would go to church, and it wasn't consistently because I was still struggling with the enemy still was trying to pull me away from it. And so I would go, I'd take the kids and stuff, and when I had them, and as time went on, I got a little bit more closer, I'd read more, and it's really weird, but at the same time, we both separated with the people that we were with. Like, I just finally said, look, I'm done, I need to move on, and I just need, and same thing with her too, and I kid you not, it was probably it couldn't even been the same week probably, but we just, we ended up finding out, and then, we got together, like, let's go have, I think it was lunch or something, the first time, and then we went and had lunch, and it was civil, it was, for the first time we were pretty civil.
I remember that time we were exchanging kids. I think that was the hardest part too. We both love our children so much, and having to, oh, this is your weekend, this is my weekend, oh, this holiday is yours, so I can have them this, and then
it's exhausting.
It was, and it was heartbreaking, because one of us was always missing out, and so I remember that weekend I went to drop off the children, and I called my sister-in-law, and I tell her, I said, I think he was flirting with me. And she says, what? I was like, yeah, it was really weird, like, I don't know, it was just odd. And so once I got the children back, they were young, they were, by this time they were like 4 and 6 or something like that.
Do they remember all of this happening?
My son, unfortunately,
he does remember
some of it, and that's really sad, but I'd rather it be when they were younger than now. I feel like we got things right now so that they can take more in than when they were younger.
Because basically, so we had that lunch, and then we actually ended up going to dinner. And after that dinner is kind of when we started seeing each other again. And it was funny because it was kind of like on the down low, like we didn't want either side of the families to know.
It must have been a little embarrassing, right?
It was, but it was also kind of like we were teenagers again.
Yeah. Sneaking around.
Yeah. So it was pretty funny, but
it really was.
Yeah, but then we started seeing each other, and then when we finally that was it. Like we're gonna go all back in again.
And I think the reason why we did that too is because of the children.
Yeah.
We didn't want to bring that false hope, and we didn't know what we were doing.
Of course, we wanted to make sure it was right.
Yeah, we didn't know what it was, and I didn't. Well, I know he didn't either, but I didn't want to bring the kids back into it and then
pull them apart
again. We just wanted to make sure it was right. So we didn't tell anybody for a while. And then finally we did, and we both got a lot of backlash, like why, after everything that happened, everything that he did, everything that she did, so it was difficult at first. But yeah, our priority has always been our family, our little family, and we were back together, and our children had both of us full time, and it was worth it.
What did forgiveness look like in your guys' relationship? Because I know that you both hurt each other.
Yeah.
So you guys had to go through some sort of healing forgiveness process. Johnny, what did that look like?
Well, then that's where I was getting at. Because,
perfect.
So we got back to in 2010. 2011, we got married again, 11. So we got remarried again. And that time it was just us and our 2 kids. That's it. We just went to a little chapel downtown Modesto, and it was just us this time. None of the family, no drama. It was just us. And we were still having issues because we still were kind of going like this. We weren't
one foot in the world, one foot in.
Yeah, we weren't like this yet. and we were on the verge of getting divorced again. We talked about separation, and I convinced her to go to counseling with me out at our church.
I was over it.
Yeah, she didn't want to. So I started reading the Bible with the kids, and then eventually she started sitting with us, and then we went to counseling. And I'm thinking, like she was saying, you know, we never really think that we have anything, you know, our own fault. So we're going to counseling, and I was thinking, oh, there's all the stuff that she's gonna have to fix. Well, no, there's a lot of stuff that I had to fix, and it actually helped out. And that going to church together, and started to follow God. That's what we started going like this. And we actually started going together, and it was so funny because, like I said, I had dreams of walking down the hallway with her, and we walked down the hallway to church, same church together, and we got baptized together, and our kids got baptized there. So ever since then, I mean, yeah, we have our issues up and down, but
Not
we started
to be perfect.
Yeah, but at least we started to get this instead of like this. We were, you know, now we're, you know, going in the same direction. So that's what made all the difference with our getting back to, because we were again living for ourselves again, and we're going back into our old ways, and we weren't, you know, it's like definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's what we were doing.
And I was so angry because the moment that I had tried to protect my children from, it was happening. You know, and when we sat there and had this conversation, now, you know, 6 years later, 7 years after the divorce and being back together and everything, the kids are older. So I remember having this conversation, and I remember my son's face and just, you know, and I felt like such a failure because it was like, this is what I was trying to protect them from, and here we are, and it's happening again. I was so angry. I was angry at him. I was angry at myself. I was just like, how did I allow me and my children to be here again? You know, it was devastating. And he says, fine, you know, we'll tell the kids. And I said, fine. I do not want to continue like in a toxic relationship and then have this conversation again 3-4 years, you know. And he was the one that said, let's go to counseling. Let's try. And I was just like, for what? I didn't see it changing. You know, I was closed off by this time because I thought, I tried so hard. And, but yeah, he convinced me. And then after the first one, you know, there was a lot of issues with his family, and his family, they're good people. His mom, his dad, his sisters, they just do life differently as my family, you know? And so here we are trying to take from his family, from my family, and trying to create our own. And so...
Neither side of our family really follow God. I mean, to where like what we're trying to do with our kids, we kind of, you know, like I said, we both come from broken homes. You know, I came from a home with my original father was alcoholic. You know, my mom left him, and then she married my stepdad, and you know, he kind of raised me since I was like in 3rd, 4th grade. You know, so we just like you're saying, we came from these different backgrounds.
I'm trying to mush it all together.
Trying to you know, become one. You know, and at first putting ourselves first and not putting God first.
And I think that the thing that really helped us was because we did have the lack of that image of what it should look like. My parents are divorced. My parents were always... My mom is the strongest woman I know, and I adore and look up to her. I didn't even know that there was issues because that's how my family dealt with it. You know, it was always behind closed doors, everything. So when we found out, oh, we're getting divorced, it was like a total, wait, what? There wasn't loud fightings. There wasn't, you know, shouting every day. So it didn't look normal for when you hear about divorce, you know. But we didn't have that couple, that marriage, that...
To aspire to be like.
Exactly.
And when you say put God first, it's a cliche thing that everybody says, but what does that look like in your marriage? Because, I mean, I agree. You need to put God first. So how do you guys live that out every single day?
Well, for myself, make sure I put God first, and then my wife, and my kids, and everyone else. And a lot of couples get it confused, and they put their kids in front of their spouse. And don't get me wrong, I mean, your kids need to come up on top also, because you're there to nurse them, to help them grow. But your kids are going to grow up one day and move out and start their own family. Your spouse is always going to be there. You know, God forbid, you know, you guys, you know, grow old and stuff. And that's how, you know, we tried, or I tried on my part, to lead our family by putting God first. It's God, and then my wife, and then everyone else. Because before I didn't have that. I had that all jumbled up. You know, it wasn't, you know, and so that's...
I always came last.
And how did you become the woman of God that he also needed?
I think being a little bit, how can I say it? Humbled, you know, not necessarily. I know we joke about it all the time about, oh, I'm right all the time, I'm always right, you know this, you know, but truly just trying to have people in my life who I aspire to be, you know, having those women that I see, and it's not that it's not fake, that it's not, you know, one and done kind of thing. When we started doing counseling, our pastor Rick Thompson, and then his wife Yvonne, I mean, to see that type of marriage, it was like a light bulb, you know. For me, speaking for myself, you know, it was like I had that example of what it should look like, or it could look like. So I think that was the most important thing for me, just trying to have godly people in our lives. That
Accountability.
Yeah, definitely. You know, that would not be afraid to call you out on, hey, you know, this not, and to be able to take it respectfully and to grow from it, rather than, oh, how dare she, you know, things like that.
Exactly. It's very humbling.
Yeah.
To admit that you're wrong. Whew.
But you know what? I think that's when you go back to, you know, putting God first, you put God, and I try to live by an example by him, the way he treated the church and, you know, all of us kids, and tried to do it with my wife and with my kids and stuff. And, you know, a lot of it is just humbling myself, you know, every day.
Yeah. Well, and the Bible makes it very clear that we need to put others first, you know, whether that's people at your church, your neighbors, people at work, your wife, and, you know, that's being selfless, really.
Yeah. And which is not easy to do, because our flesh doesn't like that.
Absolutely not. And you're not going to get it right all the time. When you mess up right now, what's your guys' process? Because, I mean, your marriage is still not perfect.
Yeah.
No marriage is perfect. So how do you handle
He's
situations that come up?
Happy wife,
You see?
happy life.
You see? See what I'm talking about?
You guys can joke about it. That's all good.
I think for me, because there's times that we go back towards our old ways, our flesh.
Especially at the beginning.
Yeah, and not so much anymore, but I stop and I have to pray. I have to open my Bible and read. There's times that we'll be starting to argue or something, and I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back, and I'll go in the room. I have to get my Bible open up and read and pray, because that way I clear my head and I start thinking or seeing, you know, through Jesus' eyes, and not myself.
Thinking in the spirit.
Exactly, because, and I remind myself that it's a spiritual battle. You know, it's not a flesh battle between her and I. You know, so that's what I do to help keep my part, because I can't change her. She can't change me, and that's...
He tried.
Yeah. And that was our issue before. I always wanted to change her to how this mold, and same with her. She wanted to change me.
But you couldn't change him, only God could.
Yeah. And that's exactly why. So I'll go to him, so that way he can, you know, guide me and correct me.
Yeah, I think it helped too, the fact that we communicate differently. I mean, you know, when I'm upset, I always think about what I'm gonna say, how I'm gonna say it, and I have like this, you know, whole conversation with myself before I even get it out there. And this guy,
I want to fix it right now.
And that would drive me crazy. Like at the beginning, it was like I don't even I can't even tell you what I'm feeling right now because I have to think about how
That's how I
feeling.
am.
It's
I
horrible.
need like space. I'm like, I need to think about what I'm thinking about.
Exactly. And then after you think about what you're thinking about, you need to think about
How you're
you're
gonna
say it. So it was like, no, I need some time. And he would get even more upset. Like, time for what? We're talking right now. Talk to me. And it was like, I can't.
So basically, I got home myself, give her time. When she's ready to talk, then we'll talk.
I see. Okay, so you go and pray and read the word, and she thinks, oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to definitely take that into my relationship and see how it goes.
Yeah, I always tell our kids that too. You know, when you start feeling upset, take a step back, take a deep breath. And it's hard because sometimes we pressure our kids to talk right away, and not, you know, we have to remember that, you know, like our son can be like her sometimes.
He's perfect.
He thinks and stuff, you know, and we have to remind her, like, remember, he's like you when it comes to certain things like that, so we need to take a step back.
Like our daughter today, perfect example. I always tell him I feel too much and I hate it. If I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm hurt, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, I just feel too much. And he's been teaching the kids how to drive.
Both have permits, right?
Yeah, they both have permits. So our 15-year-old is driving. I'm in the back seat with my son next to me, and he's passenger. And so my husband and my son are telling her, like, oh, you know, do this or, you know, do that. And then she says, you guys are making me feel like I don't know how to drive.
I don't know how to drive.
And then so I'm like quick to, that's not what's happening. And then I remember.
And I'm being patient because I've had practice.
You guys are learning every day.
You know, and then I remember it's like she's just like me with that. And her, you know, they're trying to correct her and she's feeling attacked. And so it's like, no, just, you know, they're telling you so that you can learn, not because they're being mean. So yeah, we have to constantly keep learning and adjusting, and
we're learning day by day. I mean, with our kids, we're trying to teach them a certain way that we didn't grow up, you know, and we're still learning ourselves.
Well, your story is beautiful, and I know that it's going to impact so many people, and I want to thank you both for being on this show and for being vulnerable and sharing your story. I want to thank you for watching Shasta's Journey and being a part of what God's doing in and throughout all the lives who get to share their story, and I hope that you were taught, healed, or inspired by Adriana and Johnny, and I hope that this story of restoration and healing can make a change in your life as well. God bless.